Hello everyone listening on Spotify and watching on YouTube. This is another edition of NRG Insights, where we interview some of the successful broker owners in the country, find out a little bit about their wins, their losses, the pitfalls and the successes. And today we've got Jon Stones from Mortgage First. So thanks for joining us, John.
No problem, Marcus. Thanks for having me on, mate.
No problem. So we start, just talk to me a little bit about the Mortgage First journey, kind of how it's come about to what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a long journey, to be perfectly honest. I started the business. I was an employed mortgage broker, working for a company sort of since the early 2000s. Decided to set up by myself. The firm that I worked for was sort of heavily into adverse mortgages, and this was kind of 2006, 2007 when I sort of started plotting it. 2008 arrived just as I got all my ducks in a row to start my own business, and just kind of thought,
everyone just started making money, didn't they? 2007.
Yeah, in for a penny, in for a pound. I may as well just crack on with it. And what's the worst that can happen? And then obviously sort of pretty much started April 2008. The business launched, and was me for the first 5 or 6 years at least, just as a kind of as a one-man band, just plodding along. The business really started growing 2013, 2014, something like that. That's when I took my first admin on, and then from there the kind of first broker, etc. And then it's
out of interest, John. Sorry, mate. Has it been 2013, 2014 relatively steady, or have you had quite a surge? Because I don't know how it looks to
peaks and troughs to me. Peaks and troughs. To be perfectly honest. If I plotted it, and I have graphs which kind of show the levels of lending submitted, and you can really see it in there that, you know, there's kind of we took 1 or 2 brokers on, which obviously caused a bit of a peak, and then it sort of went like that. There has been big spells of growth, and 2 or 3 years ago we had a big growth push as well, and we're also right in the middle of one now, and we hit 30 brokers a couple of weeks ago.
Amazing. I saw that the other day. I said you can start your own Guess Who board now, can't you?
Yeah, pretty much, mate. Pretty much. So we hit 30. There's another probably 10 in the pipeline that are going to be coming in. The aim was always to get to as close to 40 as possible by the end of this year. So that's where we're at currently. 30-ish brokers. There's about 50 of us in total, in terms of management, administration. So yeah, it's grown a little bit since it was just me at the kitchen table trying to survive a credit crunch back in 2008.
Yeah, and you know, I know we've talked about this, but to kind of ease the pain of some of the young brokers that potentially haven't, well, they've had no adversity. The last 8 years has been pretty good. Talk to them, or talk to me about the kind of the issues that you had to go through in 2008, and why that sets you up nicely for the kind of the challenges we're going through at the moment.
I mean, it was a completely different issue in 2008. You know, in 2008, the issue was that the lenders didn't have any money the banks didn't have any money to lend. So the beauty of what we, as you know, as brokers, what we sell or what we arrange is it's a product that everybody wants. People's mortgages haven't just gone away overnight. People still have the desire to buy properties. Yes, the interest rates are higher now. Yes, it costs them more money, which maybe price some people out of the market. Yes, obviously cost of living, etc., is impacting on what people can afford and whether they're going to do it now or further down the line. But the desire and the demand is still there right now. The issue 2008 was that nobody would lend any money. So it wasn't a case of interest rates were really. It was a case of there were no products to lend. So to me, it's very, very different to what it was back then. And for new brokers who weren't around at that point, yes, it will seem, you know, quite intense, and because they've not been through anything.
You don't want to dumb down how tough this is for them, do you? Because it's still tough in the sense that you've never seen it before. I just want to kind of point out that it's not the first time, it's not the worst time, it's not the end of the world.
It isn't. And one of the things we did when sort of things first kicked off with the mini budget, etc., a few weeks ago, our first few days were kind of spent, I'm sure they won't mind me saying it, kind of calming down the advisors, to be honest, because a lot of them were in sort of panic stations in terms of what it meant for them and their clients and their, you know, their pipelines, etc., etc. So a lot of time was spent just sort of explaining what we've been through before, what we could do to help them as a business, what the best practices were, you know, even down to I sat and did a thing with all the advisors about, okay, well, if you're quiet for new leads, here's 4 or 5 other things that you can be doing to generate business. Go back through your old client bank. Have you ever canvassed all of your clients for referrals? Have you, look at your life conversion. If you're only at a certain level, reach out to everybody, etc., etc. There's a lot of stuff that people can be doing to be, will referrals as well as another big one that we're looking at right now. A lot of stuff people can be doing. Gaps.
You just have to work a bit harder, don't you? It just,
you do. And that's kind of in a nice way what we said to the guys is it's not as easy as it was, let alone 12 months, 6 months ago. But the business is still there. You've just got to work a little. You've got to work harder and work smarter, to make sure that you're still doing a similar level of business. And that'll only stand you in good stead as when things pick back up again. If you get into a habit of, getting every penny out of that opportunity, when you are then flooded with leads, if you carry on that school of thought, you can earn even more money when the market picks back up.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I remember 2008, 2009, when you were banging out your protection. Every single one was getting protection to the highest level. I'll never give this up, even when the market changes. This is how I'm going to do business from now on. Got better a couple of years later.
Get busy again, mate. As soon as they get busy, it all falls by the wayside again, and we're back to
this is the way I earn money. This is my big commitment. This is what I'm going to do forever. Oh, I'm making money again. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, just we get short memories, don't we?
We do.
So talk to me about how. I don't want to bang on about this time. It's tricky. It's a tricky patch. I don't think it's going to be long, but obviously you've got a lot of staff under you. So, and I do think it is relevant in regards to how the management act at times like this. So how easy was it to kind of like you said Dan about talking about their pain points, and how easy is it to motivate a team that haven't seen it before? What any kind of magic tricks, or is it just to keep it on top of it?
I mean, I think ultimately, mate, it comes down to the individual and whether they want to be motivated by it. We have self-employed advisors predominantly. Well, not all self-employed advisors, a mixture of employed and self-employed. But probably 2/3 of our advisor numbers are self-employed. Vast majority work remotely from home as well. So there's only so much you can do. You can't sit on their shoulder and listen to what they're saying to clients and tell them to do stuff. It comes down to the individual's motivation to do it. And ultimately, the cream rises to the crop in that instance. If you're a motivated person who's driven and you want to earn money, you're in the right arena to do it. You're going to be at the top of those league tables. You're going to be writing big business and earning big money. If you're not able to self-motivate yourself, particularly as a remote advisor working from home, then you're probably in the wrong. So there's only so much you have to motivate them.
I think it's a mindset thing as well, but it really does show, doesn't it? When you've got people who are on the same boat. And some people are smashing it, have their really good Octobers, and others have really struggled. And I always talk about mindset, but I genuinely think it is. I think if you tallied up the most positive to negative in any company or with any client we've got, the negative ones are struggling because they instantly. If you've got to work every day, think it's going to be hard. Guess what? It's going to be hard.
Well, if you use the old football analogy, it's like Gary Neville. Gary Neville was never the greatest footballer in the world, but he played for England, played for the best team in the world at the time, won the Champions League through to due to hard work and positive mindset. And that's hard.
Exactly that. Work harder than
outweighs talent, doesn't it? At the end of the day,
yeah.
Work harder.
Very blessed to be surrounded by the people he was as well, but obviously. Your guys are surrounded by management and stuff.
You got David Beckham playing in front of you. I suppose you're kind of going to do even I look half decent, I think. But, yeah.
So I tell you what I'm interested in, John, and I kind of feel a bit hypocritical talking about this because I always say about the bought-in lead side of things, although it's very different actually. I don't say don't buy in leads. I say you can't not build a brand. I think that's the difference. I think you've done both, but you have built a very good business on purchasing leads, and worked it that way. So. I kind of eat my words when I talk to you because it's not always about building your brand. You can work a conversion that works and suits everyone. But talk to me about how you kind of you built the business on that, didn't you? That lead gen, that percentage, that conversion.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and it still plays a sizable part in the business today. Nowhere near as much as what it used to. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. The business was built around paid leads, around generating leads through sort of pay-per-click and that kind of thing. I was quite an early adopter of pay-per-click and internet-generated marketing, not because I was an expert in terms of what I was doing. I had an idea which wasn't going to work when I presented it to sort of the tech guys, but they said, well, actually, it would work if you did it this way. So I can't kind of claim credit for coming up with this wonderful idea. But yeah, that's what changed the business from me being a one-man band in Chesterfield who would do a mortgage within whatever radius I was willing to drive to, or somebody who's willing to drive to me, to going remote and doing it nationwide across the country. pay-per-click is essentially how I grew the business that way.
I think, well, sorry, I don't interrupt, but I just think you've done it right. I want to kind of get across to people, because people do buy leads, but they still have that transactional, because it's a bought lead, they don't work it hard enough. But you've done both sides of the coin, haven't you? So you are buying leads, but at the same time, you have built a brand and you have built a business on the other side. And I'm sure you don't let your guys slack off in regards to not keeping it transactional, you know, making relationships.
No, exactly. And you know, paid leads only works when you do it in volume and you do it consistently. And you're quite right what you said at the beginning. Paid leads have a bad press, and they don't work for everybody. They don't work for everybody's business model. They don't work for everybody as an individual. But that doesn't mean overall they're a bad thing, or that, you know, that they don't work. We are proof in the pudding that they do work.
Yeah.
Like I say, nowadays we still get paid leads either through our own sort of pay-per-click and SEO. We partner with a couple of big lead providers that we buy leads in from as well. We also, you know, we have a massive client bank. We have a lot of introducers. We have a lot of referrals. We get the advisors to self-gen as well. And you know, it's funny. You speak to a lot of these big paid lead companies, and there's a lot of massive brokers out there that are buying leads in. Probably don't shout about it, but you know, there's a lot of big firms out there that are also using paid leads as a way to get business in as well. But yeah, you know, you've got to build your brand as well. It's not just about chucking new leads in at the front end, because that costs money to chuck them in. With paid leads, where you actually make your money on them is where there's no lead cost to it. Is the second time, the third time around that you're doing the mortgage for it.
Well, that's the frustrating thing for me.
Free lead.
It's the guys who, potentially not your guys, because they're self-employed and they get leads, and it, you know, it works that way. I can't fathom the blokes who have been doing it 12 years and they're still buying leads at the same rate as they were before, and they're still on 70 grand. You know what I mean? They're not, like, how is that possible? How have you not gone back?
So my top advisors don't have leads from us anymore.
Yeah, so that's the way you should do it.
The way the Mortgage First model works is you bring your new advisors down at the bottom and you're chucking loads of paid leads into them. The longer they're here, the higher they move up the totem pole, so to speak. So my top advisors who've been here 6-7 years now, they don't take any paid leads. They're purely working off their client bank, which they've built up. So whilst they're here with Mortgage First, even though we generate the leads for them, if they move on, we keep those clients in theory. Whilst ever they're part of Mortgage First, they're just servicing that client bank. So all they're doing is doing renewals. They're getting referrals from their existing client bank, and they've built up their own introducers. So that's how you can keep growing the model. It's why you never run out of leads, because you just keep chucking new advisors at the bottom.
To me, that 6-year sweet spot makes sense, doesn't it? Because you've got two lots of fixed rates flowing through your leads. But that's what I mean. So the guys 10 years in buying the same amount of leads, earning the same money. It is just, well, it's lazy for one, because you haven't
well, they're not retaining the clients, are they? I mean, like, so Megan Kearney, a perfect example. She's been with us 6 years. I think last week she was saying, she hasn't took a paid lead probably for a couple of years now. But you know, she's writing 6 figures a year. She's earning decent money, because she's just working on that existing client bank and referrals and other introducers, and generating her own business as well. And that's kind of how the business model works. And where people have the issue with paid leads is, you know, they'll spend 500 quid on some leads, and then I'm not writing any business off of them immediately, and be like, oh, these are rubbish, don't work. I'm not doing these again. But the best way you judge a paid lead source is if you take leads for a month, and then 6 months later look back at what business you've done off it, because a lot of them, 9 times out of 10, they are on the internet for a reason, looking for mortgage advice. Yeah. They're not going to be, you know, you do get your straightforward cases. You get your people who haven't got the time or the inclination to sort a mortgage out themselves and just want somebody to do it. We've had footballers, we've had TV actors, you know, we've had all kinds of people come through our paid leads. You also get people who don't know, but 9 times out of 10, they're there for a reason. So we've taken on a new lead source and we've trialed it for a few weeks. And some of my advice, these are rubbish, don't want these leads, not done any business.
Is it always the same advice that the leads are bad?
Yeah, sometimes 3 or 4 months later, they'll look back at the pipeline and they'll be like, them leads are all right, actually. I've wrote quite a lot of bits. Can we have some more of them? And it's, you know, but where people make the mistake is short-termism. It's saying, well, I've spent 500 quid, a week later, I've done no business. These are crap, they don't work. It's a lot, you know, buying leads is a long-term game. And, you know, the whole speculate to accumulate. I mean, I think in our height, we were probably spending 7-8 grand a month just on pay-per-click. But we're writing 100 grand a month plus business off the back of it. So, you know,
you've got to have you've got fairly.
But you've got to build it up slowly. You'll get there.
Yeah, the long game mindset. Because mind you, that's with anything. You know, I get messages now from people that I've added value to 3 or 4 years ago, and you kind of just keep them in the touch point situation. That, like, if you look at, like you just said, then if you look at everything as a short game, you're going to really struggle because everything's a transaction and no one cares and no one will come back to either. So it's
100%.
It's certainly very interesting. So I know you mentioned, you kind of touched on your plans. What are your plans kind of end of this year, next year? I know you said the market is challenging, but I think we're all fairly bullish in regards to how quickly it will come back. So what are the plans for Mortgage First?
So yeah, I mean, we made quite a few changes this year in terms of sort of management structure, because as we're growing, it's important that you get your foundations in place. There's no point kind of growing too quickly and too big too fast, and then it all come tumbling down because you've maybe not got the support, you know. And I've made every mistake going in terms of growing the business, and we've done exactly just that. When we grew a few years ago, we grew too quickly. And probably didn't have the support in place that some of the new advisors needed coming in. So we've made changes in terms of, we brought a guy called John Wildman in, who was our business development manager from Stonebridge on network. John's now works for us full time, and he looks after all of the self-employed advisors, giving them the help and the support. We've now took on so many advisors that actually we've had to bring somebody else underneath John as well. One of our advisors has converted into a business development consultant, I think the title is. She'll be working with John in terms of supporting the advisors, just to make sure they've got the support. We've also brought in a guy called Paul Lewis, who Paul has come in as head of growth. So Paul's role is, Paul is what has triggered the latest sort of recruitment of sort of 15, 20 brokers. Part of his role is finding and bringing in good brokers to the business. And you know, when you're paying somebody to come in as head of growth, you know, you're not looking to bring one advisor a year in, and you're looking to grow quite quickly and quite aggressively. So I always kind of stop short of externally putting figures on where we want to be. I've seen people do that in the past and
but it's a growing business, though. You're not content.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you know, we are, our long-term aim, you know, we did a business plan with Stonebridge on Network a few weeks ago, and just at the point where we were renewing our sort of long-term contract with them. Our aim is to become one of the biggest and the best in the business. And I'm not just talking about on headcount, I'm talking about business levels. You know, it's all very well having 100 brokers, but if they're only writing 10 grand a year, then it's just vanity, isn't it?
Do you know what I think that's really important as well, John, is just to kind of reiterate that to especially young brokers or young broker owners who want to kind of, obviously you're going to get lots of people who try and copy that process you've done, and like you said, you've made mistakes and they won't have seen that. But the really important bit is adding that support, because if you get 10 brokers and you leave them on their own, they're not going to get anywhere. You know, you're not going to get that. It'd be great if everyone did 10 grand a month every month and you knew that. And
you'll drop on the odd lucky one that will do that without any support whatsoever. But that'll frustrate you even more, because then you won't understand why they can do it, the other ones can't. And it's because the other ones need the help and support in doing it. And you know, I speak to a lot of sort of smaller, you know, with all due respect, smaller broker business owners on LinkedIn and things like that. And a lot of them will kind of say, I want to get some advisors, I want to grow it, I want to sort of grow it really big. And there does seem to be a sort of new breed of people coming through who want to grow a business quickly rather than growing a brokerage because the brokerage is doing so, if that makes sense. So
absolutely. And obviously
I never set out to have 50 staff. It just kind of happened because we got that busy over the years that it organically developed.
That is important as well, because obviously in my job, I speak to loads of those. I speak to lots of those people who want to grow because they think that's the thing to do. No actual direction, and actually, who doesn't want someone to come into their business and you take half their leads and you don't supply them or anything? You know, that's a perfect. I'd employ 100 of them.
But then the issue is the business owner. When you do that, your actual earnings and profitability of business will drop through the floor, because all of a sudden all your time's being taken up. You know, training these advisors who, with all due respect to them, probably aren't going to be as good as you, aren't going to be as committed as you. You're giving your leads up that you are keeping 100% of the commission for, and you know, paying them whatever split you're doing them. So you need to bring in, if you're a good business writer, as most people who want to grow a brokerage are, you need to bring 2, 3, 4 advisors in just to replace the profit as an
What
individual.
stage was that, out of interest, John? What stage was that for you when you had to come away from?
So we were at about, I'll be perfectly honest, the last 6 or 7 years, even pre-COVID, blur into one. So people ask me dates and things like this. I haven't got a clue. It was the late 2000 teens, and we kind of had 8 to 10 brokers probably. Lisa, my wife, works full time for the business as well. My kids would have been 1 and 3 or 4 at that point. Probably 2 and 4 they would have been. And we just kind of reached a point as a business where you have to pick a path that you want to go down. You want to be a business owner and grow a business, or do you want to be an advisor? And there's nothing wrong with that. Short term, being an advisor probably would earn me a lot more money than being a business owner. Just having lots of admin and writing loads of business, I'd have made a lot more money.
It's funny actually when you talk to them, because people do tend to. I just think the worst reason to take someone on is to get off the phone, or to get your time back, because you'll be able to tell people like what kind of hours you work and that kind of thing now. But people have got to do it for the right reason. And I think I was at the point where I couldn't do both well. I couldn't be an advisor well and grow a business well, because you're trying to do kind of business development things and help advisors develop, and Mrs. Smith's screaming because she hasn't got a decision in principle, or Stonebridge is saying you've only got 1 more day to upload that document or you're going to get a fail. And it's like, all right, okay, well, I'll concentrate on my cases, and then your new advisor's not getting the support that they need coming in. So at some point, if you want to do that, you have to pick a path. And there's, I know people who are one-man bands and have got 3 or 4 admins and write boatloads of business. There's nothing wrong with that. It just depends what your end game is with it. Yeah. And for me, I'd reached a point where I had to pick one, and it surprises some people. I'd kind of fallen out of love with advising. I was going to say, do you miss it? But it is easy to fall out of love with it when.
No, people ask me that, and my answer is always 1,000,000% not. I don't want to say I can't think of anything worse, because that's not quite right. But yeah, I'd reached the point where I'd done it, and I'd done it hard, for the second. You've gone through that interest writing. I was writing so much business, it was unreal. But yeah, I kind of probably burnt myself out with it and needed to move on to something else.
So talk again with the guys. A lot of these listed. There's about 800 brokers listening to this, so we get sent to. But so a lot of those will just be starting out on that kind of will I, won't I, and I know they're there because they call me all the time. But when, in your mind's eye, is the perfect time, or I know there's no perfect time for having kids, but when is the time for them to have a serious consideration of taking someone else on? When do you think, what point in their journey?
So for me, my journey was, I was a one-man band doing my own admin. So the first logical step is you reach a point as a one-man band where you can't do any more business because you are writing so much business yourself and having to spend hours chasing it. So then you take on an administrator, which then frees you up to do even more business. At the point where you've got an administrator and you're struggling for work-life balance as well as time to do it, that to me is the ideal point when you take your first advisor on. Probably not what a lot of people listening potentially would want to hear, because again, there's a lot of people who are, I want to have 5 brokers. Why are you going to feed those brokers? I don't know, but I want to build a business and have 5 brokers.
Everyone wants 10 brokers and a nice cushion.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, the ideal time is when you are at the point to take your first broker on, is when you've got that much business. In terms of completely stepping back, that's got to be a gradual thing. Because you've got to have the biggest. I think I said this on another podcast that I did 6 months or so ago. You've got to make sure you've got money in the bank, because you step back and you get your month-end figures or whatever you look at, and you think, oh, nice one, we wrote 10 grand more than we did last month. And you look at the bottom line, you're like, shit, we didn't make any money. And it's like, well, where's what's happened? And it's because when you're taking people on, you're having to then pay away what was clear profit to the business. So it does have a big financial impact on you as a business and a business owner. That it takes a good period of months for it to kind of readjust itself from the loss you're making from no longer keeping 100% of the commission and paying it away. So it has got to be something gradual, and it's got to be done at a time when the business is financially sound as well, because you are going to feel a financial impact on it.
Deep pockets, but you can't. You've got to appreciate you're going to be losing. It's like me coming off of recruitment, like me coming off the phone. I still can't do it. I know that's the next stage in the business, but how? You know, I'm also still a big biller in the business. So what do you do? But you, like you say, it's kind of organic when you get to the point when people are getting a shit service or your staff are getting not your best.
Yeah, and for me that was, and also family life has been impacted as well. You know, I was working. I used to get in the office at 7 a.m. I was often there till 8 p.m. and I would work every single Saturday, because Saturdays was the only time, in the nicest possible way, if any of my staff are listening to it, Saturday was the only time when I got left alone to actually sit there and key applications and you know, and tidy up my paperwork and that kind of thing. So I had to work Saturdays, which is not conducive for a good family life when you've got 2 young kids.
I suppose it's different. Your kids are really young, aren't they? Obviously when that time was. But just in regards to that work-life balance thing, because I do think people have got it a bit wrong when it comes to the work-life, but maybe not. Maybe I have. But for me, work-life balance is like, I work really hard, I work quite long hours, but my kids get to do nice things, and we get holiday. So they understand that if I have to take an hour out on holiday every morning to do it, they understand that's how we pay for the holiday, you know. So I think that's a balance for me. Others are saying, well, you know, you don't really get to see them as much, or I probably have dinner with them twice a week. You know, so how do you relate work-life balance to actually running a business?
Lisa screenshotted me something the other week and sent it to me, and it I 100% agreed with it and what you're saying. Work-life balance is whatever is appropriate for you. There's no set work-life balance of you've got to work so many hours a week and do so much things with your kids and have so much time. It's whatever works right for you and your family. So what's right for my work, you know, I've massively scaled it back into, I haven't worked a weekend for ages. You know, I often take the kids to school in the morning, so I don't get in till just after 9 o'clock. But, you know, I'll still do 6, 7 o'clock finishes sometimes to catch up. Yeah. But that's the perfect, you know, and I'll still do emails in an evening, and I'll still sometimes on a weekend, you know, reply to a few emails, and I will miss the odd thing because of it. But like you say, building a great life for my family and my kids, and certain things that they get to do, they wouldn't get to do if I wasn't doing that. Yeah. Likewise, somebody else in my office, if they looked at my work life, they were like, oh my God, that's far too much. There's not enough. And it's all relative to you, your mindset, and the illustration Lisa sent me was very much that. It was kind of lots of different blocks, and it was, well, your work-life balance might be 3/4 work and 25% family stuff. But that doesn't mean that's wrong. They also look at it and say,
that's balanced. That's balanced on what you want
for you and your family. 100%.
Absolutely. You know, I don't know if it's the same for you. We try and kind of reiterate that to people that work for us, is that we don't want you working when we work. Because my work-life balance is different, but I'm building something. You know, so we've got people with young kids and that kind of thing, and you know what I mean? Like, not everyone can do what you do, otherwise they'd have what you have. So you can't, just because I work till 9 o'clock at night doesn't mean I want
you to judge everybody else by your work ethic and your standards. Still be working hard and doing a good job. Yeah, 100%. And you know, we're the same. We're encouraging people. You know, some of the self-employed advisors, at times we've even said to them, I think you need some time off. I think you need to, you know, you go in, because also I've been there and I've seen the signs of kind of borderline nearly burning out as an advisor. Yeah. So yeah, you know, we'll be, and office staff as well, you know, we're quite flexible. We let them come in a little bit late and finish a little bit late. They've got family stuff that they need to do. I'm letting them have 2 hours off to watch the England game in a couple of weeks, because that's on a Monday.
You're all heart, you are, John. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, there's nothing to do with me wanting to watch it, but yeah, you've got to find the right flexibility.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? Like you say, if you judge everyone on you, and then it makes it tough. Interesting about burnout, I don't see it as much. You probably do see it closely, but I think, because I love everything, and obviously it's mine, I don't feel ever like burnout is close, because I'm really lucky that I get to do like this kind of, you know, I'm not digging holes is kind of my point. I'm not doing it. But you must see it when people are finding it tough. I think that's when burnout is probably closer. Like times like this.
Because everything, you know, all the issues become bigger when you know, when times are tough. the financial issues, the business level issues, problems at home, all that kind of thing. Everything sort of, you know, gets exasperated, doesn't it, when times are tough. But yeah, you know, it is obviously a real thing. I saw somebody on LinkedIn talking about it the other day. You know, it does happen, and like I say, it only really happened for me because I was juggling so many different plates. Now I've kind of stepped back and I'm running the business, and you know, I'm similarly to you.
Did you see it, funny enough? Did you see it when you were in it? Did you see it when you were close, or did you not see it when you were out of it?
No, not until right at the end. Not until right at the end when I sat down and just thought, do you know what, I just can't keep doing this. And I think it was actually something with the kids that got to me, and I'd missed something, and I was like, you know, and we talked about balance. I was missing everything then. I still do odd things now, but likewise, I'm there every morning, I'm there every night type thing. But I was missing everything, and I think it was only right at the end when I kind of noticed, you know what, and don't get me wrong, I didn't burn out, but I could see it. I realised I'd had to make a change, or I would do.
That's interesting. It's interesting. Actually, it'd be useful, obviously, for your staff as well to have someone who is kind of open about. You might need to.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? We you know, mental health is a big thing. I'm lucky personally that I've never really suffered, you know, other than sort of burnout from a business point of view. I've never really suffered mental health problems, but we have people in the business who have, and you know, got first-hand experience of it. We've just actually appointed one of our senior management staff has gone through some training, and she's now a mental health first aider, I think the title is. You know, so the guys all know that they've got somebody there. And it was interesting, I think, in you know, we put something out there telling them that, you know, Carly's now taken on this role. She's had training. She's here to talk if you need. There's quite a few people that reached out to her week one saying, "Oh, I'd love to have a chat."
Amazing what you don't know.
Yeah, a lot of it was just, you know, it might be issues at home, might be issues with whatever, but I think it was good for them all to have something to talk to. So as a, you know, so this is the kind of stuff that as a one-man band broker, you don't even think about. You know, we're staff engagement and all that. We you know, part of Carly's whole role now is her role is head of service, but as under that, you know, the whole staff engagement, how we communicate with the staff, what we do, what we say, how we support them, you know, from a mental health point of view, etc. That's all kind of stuff 2008, John, didn't even think about.
Go to work, make money, and then. But I do find it interesting. Exactly. I do find, the more I delve into like leadership qualities and leadership management, that kind of thing, the more interesting it is, because it is amazing the difference between a successful team and a non-successful team in the same industry. And obviously, I see it all the time. I see people will copy your model and fail, and people that like you who will rise up. It's got to be around leadership. It's got to be around management, because everyone can sell a mortgage.
I don't know, I just make it up as I go along, mate. To be perfectly honest, I've got no management experience whatsoever. I mean, I've been self-employed since I was 28. I've worked in a call centre. I'd worked for CIS before that, but yeah, so I've literally never managed a person in my life before this. So half of it's just made up as I go along, to be honest.
Just seems to be working, John. So keep winging it. That's really useful, mate. I've taken more of your time than I had asked you for, so I do appreciate it. I always ask everyone this: if I've got a young broker listening at the moment, maybe not hitting it, you know, not doing what they want to be doing, maybe disillusioned, what's the one tip you can give someone at the moment to kind of to get them to carry on with the drive they need?
I think just stick at it is the best advice I can give. You know, I was that broker 3 or 4 times along the way. The amount of times I started looking at jobs thinking, would it just be easier to give up and go and work employed? Even outside the industry, I was looking at stuff. So, you know, I think stick at it is the best advice I can give. Don't get too carried away when it goes really, really well. Don't get too down when it goes to pot as well. That's a big thing that I've learned over the years and I probably take it a little bit too far, that I don't really celebrate any wins, to be honest. And sort of Paul and Lisa Carly,
they got to celebrate some wins.
They all don't own at me because I don't, you know, they'll be like, oh, we've done this. I'm like, brilliant. What we're doing next week then? And it's don't get too carried away, don't get too down, but stick at it. We've all been there. You know, I nearly.
Actually, I know with the celebrating the wins things, I know we're supposed to, but it is true. If you don't get crazy bit, I know we're supposed to celebrate it, and I understand the employees need to celebrate it, and you kind of just have to be on board with that. but it does make the hard times a bit easier, because you're like, this is business, this is me, that happened, it's just business.
Yeah, I think it's what keeps me driven as well, and constantly wanting to strive to grow. You know, Paul was, I think Paul, we were joking about it in the car the other day, and he was like, you never celebrate anything, do you? And I said, we celebrate, and that's wrong. So staff achievements, staff, you know, things that staff have done, absolutely, we're all over that. Hit 30 brokers, he was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm like, yeah, when are we gonna get to 40 though? And he's like, well, soon, but you know, it's that constant kind of drive.
Yeah. But then do you know, it's about leveling up as well, isn't it? You know, when you level up, if you get too excited about the goal that you hit, there's massive adrenaline down afterwards, isn't it? And it's hard.
Well, it is. You know, I remember making such a big thing of, you know, getting to 10 brokers. Not when we got there. It was such a milestone that we were going to hit.
Yeah.
It's 10 brokers, and it's like, well, nothing's changed. Just let's.
Very similar to yesterday, yeah. That's the trouble, is when you look at it, and this is really important, I hope people do take on board, about the long game that you mentioned. When you look at the long game, all those short-term goals are great, but if you concentrate on those short-term goals, they become really boring, or they're really hard, or that horrible feeling when you get there and nothing changes.
Yeah,
we've got it. We've done it with revenue targets. We're like, amazing to hit this, because we've never done it before, and then you hit it, and nothing changes. Do you know what I mean? You don't.
No,
the next day. It's not like.
It's, you know, and sometimes as well, I had a day the other week, and we had a couple of meetings with various people, and they were quite high level meetings in terms of the business. And sometimes that's, you know, that kind of stuff re-energizes you, the kind of actually realizing, yeah, do you know what, we are doing a good job, and we are getting to where we want to be. Because sometimes you focus too much on the day to day, and it just becomes mundane and kind of grinds you down a little bit, and then you'll go.
Yeah, you have to look back, don't you? You have to look back and see how far you come.
100%.
I know. I said that was my last question, but you just touched on something. Imposter syndrome. Do you get it?
All the time, literally. I was thinking this the other day, actually. Probably daily.
Yeah.
That's maybe something to do with my makeup. And that's probably possibly something to do with not celebrating the wins. As well, is probably possibly part of that. But yeah, all the time I'll doubt that we're actually as good or as big or doing, you know,
it's not real.
People think it's not real. It's all just luck, and it's all just kind of happened, and, you know, yeah, all the time.
That should be reassuring to people, because I hear about it all the time. I think everyone feels the same way, don't we? Because every stage we're at, we've never been there. So it's not like it's our third, fourth business where we've built one, sold it a bit. So.
And even I look at other businesses, and I think, oh, look at what they're doing. Look at them; they look great, and they're so much better than us. And
every business thinks the same, don't they? Every business.
No, imposter syndrome is. I was thinking about this the other day, literally the other day, and if I sit and reflect on it, I probably have some feelings of it every single day.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, that's reassuring for people to know that, because there's small businesses looking at you, thinking, how do you get to that? So they know that we're all in the same boat. We're all just trying to run across and winging it as we go into the next stage.
Exactly. So, making it up as we go along.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, John. Like I said, I really do appreciate your time. How do people get hold of you if they want to speak to you about Mortgage First? And
LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. They can send me a message on there, or they can email me through the website as well.
Good stuff. Right, excellent. So thanks everyone for listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube. As John just said, then if you want to get hold of him, LinkedIn, and also if you've got any questions at all, just drop me a message. I'm happy to pass them on to John, and John will be happy to answer any questions you've got. But in the meantime, thank you for that, John. I appreciate it, and I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on.